we see three main trends on the e-commerce side from a broader perspective. So we see a lot more people demanding next day or same day delivery. So that's the first trend. Second thing that we clearly see is social media is driving a lot more transactions. So you might have seen that on Black Friday that just was last week. Only 1% of transactions at grocery were driven by social media. We see that going up significantly. We just met a couple of weeks ago with Xiaomi, Chinese phone company, and they've actually driven in their entire marketing strategy just by social media, and they're now the third biggest e-commerce site in China. And then the third trend that we see is an omni-channel capability or an omni-channel demand from consumers. You know, consumer doesn't care whether they go to an e-commerce site, to a mobile site, or to a store. To them, it's one brand. So brands have to be able to provide a seamless experience across channels, so not separating the channels. And then we also see a continued trend in mobile. So a lot of our brands, we already see more than half of the traffic actually coming from mobile devices. Then if you look at more Southeast Asia, you know, a lot more brands across the globe actually recognize the 600 million people here in Southeast Asia, and they see that that's a huge potential for e-commerce. You know, so for example, Adidas, we've rolled it out all across Southeast Asia. And a lot of brands recognize these 600 million people. Right now in Southeast Asia, only 1% of retail is actually done through e-commerce. So we see that trend going up significantly. We hope that by next year, it'll be probably about 1.5%. Still far away from the US and UK, but we see that going up tremendously. And the adoption of e-commerce across Southeast Asia is probably going to increase significantly.
Yeah, there's a couple of things actually that Marcelo mentioned that are actually also important for SEO. You know that Google had several releases just on their search engine over the last year from Panda and the latest Hummingbird. What we've been seeing is that local results are playing a bigger role now. So especially in combination with Google Plus, right? Google Plus encourages companies to have their company pages as well as have a listing in their local business results, which is for free. Which ties your business to like a local result, and you can see that in the Google results there is more local presence now than it used to before. And then the second one is social. So social is like there's two different aspects to social. One is to have like your social footprint, so basically your Google Plus page, your Facebook company page, your LinkedIn page. These things are all free and should be maintained by online stores and other online sites, so that there's not only free links, but it's just a presence on all those networks where people are. But then also the sharing aspects on those. So what we've seen is from a SEO perspective, those are now more important than ever before.
That's very, very different. You know, if a brand wants to come to Asia Pacific and be successful in e-commerce here, they need a very differentiated strategy by country. So for example, in China, you won't get by the fact that you need to list your products on Tmall, so you need to have a very good site on Tmall. The same thing in Japan, you most likely will have to work with Rakuten, so we will have to work with the local providers. Across Southeast Asia, I think brands have the unique advantage. There is no very strong presence of either Taobao, Rakuten, or Amazon here. So to set up their own .coms, so adidas.com.sg, adidas.com.my, and to set up their own brand sites, which actually has a humongous advantage over the marketplaces because the brands own the customer data, but also the consumers feel that they can actually trust that site, because obviously when you run your brand site, you're not going to sell fakes, which is a big challenge. And so that's the one part. We also still see rather high fraud rates, especially across Southeast Asia. So fraud is still a very big concern. And brands that come to Southeast Asia, when they come here, should make sure that they select a partner that actually knows that very well. So we have a dedicated fraud monitoring team that does nothing else but just fraud monitoring. Another big challenge obviously is still logistics. Logistics is still a challenge. However, I think through the leverage of the regional postal network, we're actually able to actually provide logistics service at significantly lower cost than courier services. If you look at a shipment from here to Malaysia or the Philippines, if you do that with an integrator, it can easily cost you $20, $30. That's actually the average order value of a lot of our brands. If you pay as much for shipping as for the product, you won't get a lot of consumers use it. If you do that via postal networks, especially for low value products, that's really efficient, and that really drives the adoption of e-commerce across Asia. So mobile commerce, absolutely. So we see, if for example in Singapore, we see a huge spike every morning when people take the train to work. Anywhere between 7:30 and 9 a.m., we see a huge spike in mobile. Actually, in that time frame, probably 80% of most of the traffic that we get from on most of our brands is actually coming from mobile sites. What we don't yet see is that a lot of people actually then transact. So what we see is a lot of people search and research on mobile, then actually transact later on a desktop device. And that depends a little on the product category. So for sporting goods, for fashion, that's usually the case. For some of the more consumable products, people actually place the order directly on the mobile phone. So for these products, it's actually advancing, but we definitely see that trend.